Thanks a lot for coming out tonight. My name is Paul Imhoff, and it's my honor to serve as the Superintendent of Schools here in UA. It's an exciting night. It's up to 33 degrees now in UA, and I think we're all ready to put shorts on. This is great. I'm glad so many of you came out. We had the meeting this morning as well at the Mountain View Church. It was 11 degrees, and I was just convinced that we wouldn't have a lot of folks come out. But I should have learned better, because this is UA and we are hardy folks here. And we had a great crowd this morning who braved the cold and came out just to hear where we are in the building process, and I'm really thrilled all of you are here tonight. As we begin, I just want to pause and introduce the members of our Board of Education. All 5 of them are here tonight. Right over here we have the president of our board, Stacy Royer, if you would wave. In the back, we have the Vice President of the Board, Nancy Dries, and then we have the 3 members of the board. We have Carol Moore, and Robin Comfort, and Scott McKenzie. And we have a wonderful Board of Education, and they have been great leaders throughout this entire process. So, our agenda for tonight. We are going to be talking about a number of things, and you see those things listed, but I know why you are all here, and the main reason that we want you here is to show you our final building designs. This has been a process that has been going on for over a year, and we have our final building designs, and they are going out on the street for pricing, and so we wanted to let everyone know where those designs landed as a part of our community-driven design process. And we also want to get some feedback from you about how we're going to do things during our construction phase. It has taken an incredible team of people to get us this far, and these are the team members on the screen behind me, and I will tell you that we are really proud of the team of folks we have put together. Our design team has been working with us for years, and a lot of their work is kind of coming to a close, and now all the construction companies are coming to where their work is going to begin in earnest. And again, it is just an excellent team. So I mentioned what is going to happen tonight, and we are excited to share these final designs with you, and I want to get to that as quickly as possible. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about prior to that. How many of you have been to one of these meetings before, over the last several years? Raise your hand. So I'm going to start in the way I start every one of these meetings, and I will always start all of our meetings in this way. What is most important to us in this district has always been and will always be what is happening in our classrooms each and every day. So while what we are here tonight to talk about is very, very important, it is not the most important thing. The most important thing is the education of our kids. And we are driven by our mission, and we are driven by our vision. And I want you to know, even though we are in the midst of a historically large construction project, we are keeping our eye on the ball, and we are focusing first and foremost on what matters most, which again is the education of our kids. And I wish that we were going to be here tonight for an hour just to talk about that. But again, that is not the purpose of this meeting this evening. So as we started our process years ago, we started working with our staff and with our community to develop guiding principles that have driven our process from the beginning until now. And you see those behind you. And I just want to highlight a few things. First of all, our Board of Education said from the very beginning, they wanted to make sure that we were not going to go out and design brand new or renovated 1950s buildings. They did not want brand new 1950s buildings. Think about that for a minute. They wanted to make sure that the school buildings that were being designed in UA were future ready and were based upon the needs of our students today and into the future. And so to that end, they sent us to visit some of the top schools around the country that really were designed with an eye to meeting the needs of our students today and in the future, because they believe deeply that we need to be preparing our students for their future and not our past. And so what is happening in the classrooms in our academic program is what has been most important in the design of our schools. And that has been all a part of this process. One of the other things that has been incredibly important to the board, and the board has said has to be foundational throughout everything we do, is we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention and we have to focus on student and staff safety. And so I do want you to know that throughout our design process, that has been a clear area of focus. It'll also be a clear area of focus during the construction of the buildings. And I'll be talking about both of those things a little bit more later. Finally, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about that has been very, very clear as we move forward is that we are growing. Now, this is one of the things I think that is sometimes surprising to people. And I've talked about this time and time and time again, and every time I do, I get people who look at me with that look of, are you serious? So we are anticipated to grow by approximately 20% over the next decade. We are currently one of the fastest growing school districts in the entire state of Ohio. And that surprises people because oftentimes the sentiment is, how can we be growing because we are a built-out community? Only schools like Dublin and Olentangy are growing where they're building all those homes. Well, what is happening here is more and more of our homes are being purchased by people who have families or are going to have families. And I bet you're seeing the same thing in your neighborhood that I'm seeing in mine. Whenever I see a new family come in, most oftentimes I see one or more strollers, okay? And that means we're going to have more and more kids, and that is great. And so I want you to know that we have been planning our schools to accommodate our growth. And in addition to that, if we grow beyond those numbers, we have an intentionally planned at each of our schools if sometime in the future we need to add even more space, we have planned for where that would occur. Because growth is a very real issue we are facing. And again, one that really surprises people. As we talk about the process again, one of the things I wanted to mention was this. This has gone on for several years, and it was the fall of 2015 that we met in this room for our first meeting over 3 years ago. And I'm going to show you a video right now. It's just about a minute long that just shows you some pictures of some of the various meetings that have occurred over this time. So why do we want to mention that tonight? First and foremost, we just wanted to say thank you. It really is a pleasure to serve in a community where so many members of our community are constantly willing to get involved and to engage and let their voice be heard. I will tell you, I've talked about this process around the state and even outside of the state of Ohio. And as I talk to other school leaders about this, they have all said, so you did this for 3 years and you had thousands of people engaged and coming to meetings. How did you do that? So we just asked. And people came. And there might be people in this room who have always lived here. And so especially for you, I need you to understand that this is a special place. And the level of engagement that happens here with our community is not common. And the type of project we are undertaking is also not possible in many places. And that's because of the community, and that is because of all of you. So we need to make sure, as we are a part of this, that we take the time to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because you all are a part of history, and you all are really a part of, as Coach Hayes said, paying it forward. And we really, really appreciate that. And what you've done and what you've been a part of is truly extraordinary. And as we saw those shots dating back over 3.5 years, I saw a lot of pictures of people who are here right now. Because so many of you have been coming to these meetings for years. And again, we truly, truly appreciate that. So some points I want to make before we jump in. One of the things is we have come to meeting after meeting after meeting where we've shown you drafts of the designs, and we've asked you for your feedback so we can go back and make adjustments. That is not happening tonight. Our designs are set. Okay? So there has to come a time when you put the pencils down and you put together the construction documents and you put it out on the street. That has happened. Okay? So we are here tonight to show you where everything landed. We are going to be getting your feedback about how we can continue to engage with you in the construction process. And I'm going to be talking to you about that a bit at the end. One of the things I need to talk about, and I want to be upfront with you, if you've never been part of a construction process and you think this is going to be fun and exciting, yeah, not so much, okay? This is going to be tough, okay? This is going to be tough, and we're all going to have to be flexible. Things happen during a construction process that we don't always plan for, and so we have a great team in place, and we are going to be flexible. We're going to adjust to those things. We are going to keep you posted. If you happen to be a neighbor of one of our 6 projects, it's also not going to be fun. And we understand that, so we have formed neighborhood committees for each of our 6 projects to work specifically with our neighbors to make sure we're doing everything we can to be a good neighbor and listen to your comments and concerns. But again, I don't want anyone in this room to think that the construction process is going to be like a walk through a meadow of wildflowers, okay? It is not going to be. Maybe you've done work at your house before. I've talked to a number of people who have likened this to putting a new kitchen in their house. And you had to do dishes in the bathtub for months, okay? And that was not fun. But at the end, you have your beautiful new kitchen, and the memories of that time fade. And this will be the same thing on a much larger scale. The other thing I need to talk about specifically here at the high school, I get a lot of questions about parking. How is parking going to work during construction? It's going to be bad. Okay, again, I want to make sure you understand that. I wish we could just make all of this seamless and easy, and of course there are going to be hundreds of spots and no one's going to have to walk. That's just not true. It's going to be difficult. We're all going to have to sacrifice a bit in order to achieve what we want at the end, and we want to be upfront about that. The other thing I want to talk about, and I've talked about at every one of these meetings, is budget. Has anyone in this room ever heard me say that the budget is the budget? Raise your hand if you've ever heard me say that. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it. There is no mechanism to go over budget. We have to live within our means. And so throughout this entire process, we have had estimate after estimate after estimate done by multiple companies to make sure our designs are aligned with our budget. So I mentioned that tonight we are showing you our final designs, and I want to be upfront about this as well. Nothing is absolutely final until the bids come back in and the prices are set. And the bids are going to start coming back in at the end of this month, and that will happen over several months because this is being put out in several different packages. But again, nothing is final. Nothing is final until all of the prices are in and all of the contracts are set. Now, with that being said, please know that we have planned carefully. We have estimated carefully. We have built in contingencies. We have been very, very conservative. But again, we need you to know nothing is final until the bids are in. And in the unlikely event that bids come in over our estimate, we will make adjustments to keep this project on budget. Because is there any mechanism to go over budget? The budget is the budget, okay? And we will continue to make sure you understand where we are on the budget, but understand we are committed to keeping this project on budget and on schedule. The other question we have gotten a number of times, and I wanted to cover quickly, is what about Windermere? Because it's going to be built a year later, and people were concerned, are we going to run out of money for that? We are getting the pricing for Windermere now, and we are locking that in, okay? And so I want you to know that if you're a Windermere parent, just understand we have planned for that as well. One other comment based upon a question I got this morning. We have talked a lot about these are not brand new 1950s buildings, and someone said this morning, well, I looked at the outside pictures and they looked like that. Well, the outside does look like that because we made a commitment to make sure our buildings fit into our neighborhoods. So when I talk about no new 1950s buildings, I'm talking about what's happening on the inside, okay? On the outside, you are going to see brick buildings that fit into our neighborhoods, which we all believe is very, very important. So tonight we are not going to be taking questions in the large group. We're going to give you an update on the designs. I'm going to come back and offer a few more comments, and then we're going to have people set up at these stations around the room. And we're all going to stay here tonight as long as you would like us to stay to answer any and all of your questions about any of these projects. We have all of our principals here. We have members of all of the companies who are working on the project here. We have our entire board here. We are all here, so anything you want to talk about, we are going to be ready to talk about tonight. But again, we are going to hold all those things until the end. So at this point, I'm pleased to introduce Steve Turks from Perkins & Will. He's going to spend a lot of time on the high school and then briefly talk to you about the other projects, and then we're going to get busy on the rest of the evening. Steve, great to have you. Here you go.
Great. Thanks, Paul. I noticed there's a lot of people standing around the back. If you want to stand, that's great. There are seats available if you want to. This is a great time to come up and grab a chair if you want one. All right, let's get going. As Paul mentioned, we're going to spend a little bit more time, just as we have in past presentations, looking at the high school. The reason for that is all your students eventually get to the high school. That's the one common building for everybody, and it's the largest project. When I click next, what you're going to see is what we call an animation. It's done with our three-dimensional model that we build in the computer. And just to set the scene for you so that you know what you're looking at, because it's going to start immediately. It'll be, you're sort of lifted up in the air, looking at the building, looking at the front of the building from the northwest, kind of looking southeast, okay? And you're going to start to rotate yourself around the building to the Mount Holyoke side of the building, and then to the south side of the building, and then back up the Brandon Road side. Okay, just to get you oriented where we're going to be when we start. So here we are. The main front door here, so we're now north of the building. You're seeing the mass of the theater with a full fly loft. Administrative spaces right here by the front door, and then music spaces wrapping around next to the theater. Athletic and wellness spaces are here on the east side of the building, facing the play fields, the stadium, and the fields to the south. As we come around the south side of the building, this is the pool, the south entry with a little patio above, and then on 3 floors on the west side of the building, there's all the academic areas. Now, sometimes we get the question, it looks like there's so much more PE space than academic space. We have to remember that there's 3 stories of academic space and only 1 story of the athletic space. So now we're, again, on over sort of Brandon Road. We're going to come inside the building now and go all the way down the length of Golden Bear Boulevard. So when you come in, the main administration is to your left, the main front, a secure vestibule. So you got good visibility of anybody coming into the building. Now we're in the main lobby. The theater is to your left. The academics is always going to be to your right, down the entire length of Golden Bear Boulevard. A black box theater here, which is kind of a small experimental theater. Behind this wall is the multi-purpose gym. These are display cases and trophy cases. Again, academics to your right. Coming down further down Golden Bear Boulevard, now you're going to see some doors into the main gym here. Now we're also in the eating space. The library, we're just passing to the right on the top. Doors that get you into the serving area. The pool, the entry into the pool here. There's also a second floor above here, which is almost like a mezzanine level for some additional dining space. So the animation ends now at the south end of the Golden Bear Boulevard, looking back to the north, back towards the main entry. Okay, so in this view, academics are to your left, and athletics, performing arts, the central office, the main administration areas are to your right. Okay? So Golden Bear Boulevard is a major organizing element of the design. It's the main circulation spine. Everything sort of feeds off of that. It's nicely daylit from above, bringing daylight into some of the interior classrooms to the left. What does that look like on the site? This is the current site, of course, for the high school. The high school building itself is outlined in red. The existing stadium and play field is going to stay in its current location in the ultimate build out of the site. There's lots of work being done to that, though. The track is being replaced. The home side bleachers are being replaced. There'll be a new press box. And so there's a lot of enhancements that are happening, but the stadium will be in its current location. So if I click the slide here, so you can see now where the existing building sits relative to all of the new construction. Okay, so since the stadium was staying there, we obviously couldn't build the building where the high school sits currently. That really left this quadrant of the site for the new building. And so its main front door really sort of addresses the corner of Brandon and Zollinger with the performing arts. I'll explain the plan when we actually look at the large-scale plans. Tennis courts are being replaced, softball field, baseball field, 2 practice fields. And then a sort of an outdoor quad right in the center of the site. The building itself this is sort of an organizational diagram of the building. So as I mentioned, Golden Bear Boulevard is that main organizing element. It runs north-south through the site. All the academics stack up on 3 floors to the west side with really sort of core academics at either end, north and south, and more specialized spaces that run in between those. So science labs, some art studios, and what we're calling flex labs run in between. The other thing that's in the middle are touchdown spaces for teachers, so faculty offices, as well as media. So the first floor is WARL and Convergent Media, and on the 2 floors above that are the Media Center. You might remember seeing that 2-story glass area in the animation going down Golden Bear Boulevard. Then to the east side are athletics, with the pool and gyms, and performing arts and music, and then the main office right next to the front door. So what that looks like in the actual floor plan, then all the academics again setting to the west side of Golden Bear Boulevard. North is to the left on this plan now. So north-south is the orientation of Golden Bear Boulevard. It's long axis. You come in the front doors here in a secure vestibule. If you look in a lot of detail at the floor plans on the boards around the room, all of the schools now have what we call a secure vestibule. It's a secure way to get into the building. It provides the district operationally any number of different ways to keep people out or to let them in. So that's happening at the front door with main administration. That's a key relationship from a security standpoint. As you come right in the front door, you're in the theater lobby, the main performance theater, again, a full fly loft, a gracious stage, 1,500 seats, right on par with the size that you have now. And then the music spaces that wrap around that in that L configuration. Going down Golden Bear Boulevard, again, academics are always to your right. The multi-purpose gym, the main competition gym with doors right off. The multi-purpose gym has doors right off onto Golden Bear Boulevard as well, but so does the main competition gym with bleachers on either side. Further down is the next big venue, which is the natatorium. And then on the far east side are support spaces. With one exception, there's a nice weight room now integrated into the school. So it's available to PE classes and so forth all through the day. You may have heard in the past, and it's still true today, that the natatorium is set up with a community entry that really segregates community members, provides a few locker facilities here. If the school district decides to open that during the school day to community members, there's a way to segregate that off so they can't get into school. That's an operational decision that the school district can make if they choose to. The second level of the school, Golden Bear Boulevard, again here, now you're seeing all these spaces I mentioned are really one-story spaces, the lockers, the gyms. The gyms and the natatorium are tall spaces, so they push up through the second floor, but there's no floor there. But what you will see keep marching up in the plan are the academics. There's a second level to the administration area, and we have structured this area. Paul mentioned growth, the enrollment study is saying a 20% growth over the next 10 years. We have structured this area to allow for a third floor to be added to the building in that location to allow some future expansion capabilities, since the site is really compact and fairly tight. So not expanding out, but expanding up in the high school. Okay, I mentioned the elevated dining when we were inside looking at the animation. There is some bleacher seating looking over the natatorium as well. And then the third floor is, again, core academics and academics stacking up on the here with the large commons at either end, and then more specialized spaces in the center. And there also is a third level access to the balcony in the theater. So what does that look like? You might remember in this room, one of the early community meetings we had, remember we had lots of images plastered all against the glass walls back here, and you put dots on those images in terms of exterior precedent images that spoke to you in a positive way and some that spoke to you in a negative way. This was the one image that got a lot of positive dots on it. And so it really became very informative for us as the designers of the building. This is really something that feels right to this community. So I think you will see a lot of the qualities and characteristics of this, sort of the vertical oriented windows, these two-story bays that pop out, this kind of glass bays. The treatment of the first two floors is mainly brick and a little bit of different material on the third floor, mostly glass and metal, that help break down the scale of that facade, give it a little bit of texture, a little bit more human qualities to it. And if we look at the design, it's a little bit harder to tell in this perspective, but very similar approach to that Brandon Road elevation, the three-story piece of this building as it faces Brandon Road. Very similar articulation. Main front door, theater, gyms, and the pool in the background, and then central administration here with music wrapping around the back side of the theater. This is now down at a ground level perspective, again looking at the front door. But you can see that's two-story brick pieces here, and a little bit different articulation of glass on the third floor. Now we're on the south side of the building. Natatorium is to your right with nice windows that look out to the south, so it'll have really nice daylight that comes into that space. The main south entry, and then academics, and we'd be going up Brandon Road here to the left. Now we're in Golden Bear Boulevard, towards the north end of Golden Bear Boulevard, with the theater to your left, and then the core academic spaces are to your right. So we're looking right down the length of Golden Bear Boulevard here. And then the last image, I believe, is down on the very south end of Golden Bear Boulevard, standing on the second level above the entry from the south end. If you were to turn around and look behind you in this image, you would be looking right out some windows outside. There's a roof area there covering that entry, which if the bids come in a positive way, there might be some funds available to do a little bit of landscaping and turn that into a green roof, a place where students can go in outside and eat during the day. What you're seeing here, again, looking towards the main entry at the far north end, the main gym is over here to the right, an upper level eating balcony that wraps around this way. And there's any number of bridges that connect the academic side to the athletic and performing arts side of the building at the second level. So that's the high school. The next images now for all the elementaries, we'll look at a site plan and then maybe one or two images of the building itself. So Barrington Road. Here's Andover and Barrington Road. The original Barrington Road school was just this little piece right here. And originally, you probably know this, but the main entry to that building was not where it is today, which is over here, because that wasn't there at the time. It was over here underneath the tower. And so in the new design, that's being reoriented so that that main entry is now back in its original location underneath the tower, facing Barrington Road. One of the things that's happening at Barrington Elementary is what are affectionately called the pods, which sit over here, are going to be removed, and a new addition will go in behind the existing facades. And actually from Andover and Barrington Road won't be all that visible. You'll see it from Northwest Boulevard across the fields more than anything else. But those are sort of neighborhoods of classrooms that surround a common space, a place where teachers can allow their students to go out and work collaboratively in that common space. And you'll see that as a theme actually in all of the elementary schools. It's part of what Paul was talking about, that future-ready orientation. Provide a variety of different kinds of spaces. It's no longer just classrooms down corridors, but places for kids and students to meet in small groups and work collaboratively, to work on those interpersonal skills. So you see that as a theme again in all the elementaries, and as a theme in the high school as well. Lots of flexibility in there with doors that allow that classroom space to pour right out into that common area. That's not to say that the existing building is not going to get renovation. It is going to get renovation. In fact, you can see here one of those common spaces that's kind of being carved into the fabric of the existing building. So while buildings are getting additions, they are also getting extensive renovations inside. I should also mention that back on the site plan, where those pods are being removed right down here, playgrounds are going back in their place. The existing ball field that's there will remain. And this is a view now from across the ball field, looking at the new addition. So you can see sort of the brick masses here with a nice articulated base of those classroom areas. And then in the center of that is a library that is a little bit more glassy in nature. That's kind of the connector between those two brick pieces. If you're familiar with Barrington Road Elementary School, you'll note that that's the existing gym, just to give you a sense of where you are on the site and the scale of the addition. Just a little bit closer in now on the addition, the library here, and then the classroom areas to the left and then off to the right. Now we're within the library. We call this a learning stair. This has become actually a theme in all the schools. The high school has got one of these, and all the elementaries do actually. Provide different kinds of venues than those traditional schools. Greensview Elementary. Greensview is a school that this is an existing piece of Greensview. It's a piece that was added most recently, although it's a number of years old. It was added most recently. The existing Greensview is an L-shaped building that comes like this. Its front door is about right down here. So while that sits in place, what is shown in yellow will be added, and then eventually that L-shaped building will be demolished. So what you'll be left with is the existing, most recent addition to Greensview will be kept. It will be renovated. And then the addition to Greensview here with all the classrooms being replaced. The library is in the center, runs through the center of the building here. Gym and some back of house mechanical and food service type spaces. Playgrounds then to the west side of the building, right up against the existing park. So what does that look like? So this is a view of the south entry. The main entry is over here to the right, but those sort of, as the building masses sort of break a little bit, they become different colors to break down the scale of the building. Again, like Barrington, like all the elementaries, there's this nice stair that becomes a place for teachers to make presentations to students or students to make presentations to students, but it's also a way to get to the second level. So at Greensview, the library sits in the middle. You're seeing classrooms flanking it, small group spaces here that are kind of glassy spaces, places for students to work. So really a nice, fresh, crisp, quite lovely interior. Tremont Elementary School, you may know, has most recent, is the one building in the district that has had the most recent work, the most recent additions. Those being this addition, this classroom addition came first, and then a lot of work on the south end of the building with a new gym, a reorientation of the main entry to the building, food service got reworked. So its needs are less in terms of expansion. So it's got the smallest addition that's happening, which is here in yellow. Again, a grade level pod here of classrooms around a common space. But that's not to say that the existing building, the parts that haven't been touched in past work, the past most recent work, those are going to be renovated as well. So the current existing building will also see renovation and working in some of these common collaboration spaces within the fabric of the existing building. So what does that look like from the outside? So this is sort of out towards Tremont Road, looking back at the existing building. This is the addition, sort of in keeping with and very contextual to the existing architecture, with the sort of trying to match the brick, the pitched roofs, and the articulation of the windows. That's kind of wrapping around now a little bit further up Tremont Road, looking at different views of that addition. Wickliffe Elementary and Windermere are the last two elementaries. Those are, if you've been at past presentations, what we ended up doing was basically designing the same building and siting it differently on two different sites. Each building is articulated with its own brick colors, its own kind of interior and material palette, which were chosen by those schools. But there was some economy in building the same building twice. So Wickliffe Elementary School, the current building is an L-shaped building like this. Just to get you oriented, Wickliffe Road is to the top. North is up on this diagram. This is the current castle, what's called the castle playground. That's untouched. It will stay there after the new construction is done. So the new building sits outside of the footprint of the current building, which again is an L shape. And in the year when this is built and opens, Wickliffe students will move into the new building, and for that first year, Windermere students will be educated in the current Wickliffe building while the current Windermere building is torn down and the new Windermere building is built essentially on the same site as the current building. So we're using the current Wickliffe building as a swing building for one academic year to allow that to happen. The benefit of that is it keeps kids out of trailers for a year, out of mobile classrooms, okay? So this building is organized, main entry here, facing Wickliffe Road, which is nice because it doesn't do that right now. It's over here to the side. Main gym, cafeteria, eating space, and then the academic areas centered around a media center, which is in the heart of that building with those common collaboration spaces and classrooms that open into those. So again, that common theme. So what this looks like from the Wickliffe Road, looking at the main entry. The academic areas over here to the left. Straight ahead would be the cafeteria space, and then you're seeing administrative space here, and the mass of the gym in the background there. This is in the dining commons at Wickliffe, looking through a glass wall, just peeking into the media center in the background. Windermere, again, the same footprint, oriented differently on the site. So it's now kind of turned in a north-south orientation. The current Windermere building sets right there. So we can't, and we went through any number of iterations to look at, well, maybe we try to build it back over here. At the end of the day, it just did not feel like a good long-term solution to push the building into the back of the site. So this is the one school where we're sitting on top of its current location, hence the use of the WICKUFFE site for the year. So it's really the same footprint. The site treatment is different than the WICKUFFE site, although the same types of amenities. The building brick colors are different here, as well as the interior material palette. Again, were picked by each of the school communities to give it its own school personality. So here we are again, though, looking a little bit different view, this time looking from the dining commons, a little bit more direct view into the media center, and then you can see that learning stair here, which again, place for presentation, also a place to get to the second level. And that concludes the designs. If you want to see those in more particular detail, all the boards are up around the perimeter of the room. I'm going to turn it back over to Paul.
Great, thanks a lot, Steve. So before we get to the feedback activity, I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about academics, I want to talk about safety, and I want to talk about timeline. Throughout the process, I will tell you as we go through the design, I'll give you a little window here, many of the questions we get are about the athletic spaces. And that's great, by the way. I love the athletic programs here, and those spaces are incredibly important. But I want to talk to you a moment about the academic spaces, because that's what we're most passionate about. And the real focus of the design process is how to make sure that we're really getting those academic spaces correct. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we are really working to design future-ready buildings. And so one of the things you saw as Steve walked through there is many of our classrooms are designed around common areas. And many of the classrooms have large overhead doors that you can close or open into these areas. That's all about having flexible space. So you can use it as a traditional classroom with a teacher and 25 students, or you can open up into larger areas and deal with larger and smaller groups of kids. It's about flexibility. It is about collaboration and creativity. It's about building a building that can meet our needs today and into the future when we're not quite sure what the future is going to hold. And so we want the buildings to be able to grow with us. And this is a really innovative design, and we're really excited about what the academic areas are going to be able to do. We are being really intentional about the designing areas for STEM, science and technology, engineering and math. There is going to be an entire common area in the high school dedicated just to that, and that's going to be built so it can get dirty with concrete floors and drains in the floor, a place for kids to create and experiment. So I just want to impress upon you how excited we are about the academic areas of these buildings. And I would really encourage you to learn more about those and ask questions about those areas, in addition to the wonderful spaces for all of the other programs. Those are certainly great too. So that's what I wanted to say about academics. Next, a word about safety. So I mentioned at the beginning, safety is a top priority for our Board of Education, and it should be. And so one of the things that we've noticed throughout the process is there are a number of people who, concerned about safety, have said things like, well, if we're really concerned about safety, we should really build classrooms that don't really have windows and have steel doors and make it as secure as possible. And I understand the mindset, trust me. But one of the things we have done is also look at the research. And what does the research say about safety? One of the things we have also done is last summer we actually brought in the retired superintendent from the Newtown schools, which is the home of Sandy Hook, where a horrible tragedy occurred. And if you look at that project, after that occurred, they tore down that building and the state paid for a brand new building to be built. And that community did, again, a deep dive into the research, as you would imagine, to determine what is the safest type of building to build. And you will find in that new building a very open, welcoming, inviting building with lots of glass And the reason for that is, again, the research on this is clear. The most important thing, if we want to be serious about safety, is making sure that we're serious about the well-being of our students and staff. And that starts with making sure our buildings are a place that are inviting and welcoming. I know it might be counter to what some people might think, because there can be that point of view, let's make them look more like prisons. But again, the research is telling us that's not the way to go if we're serious about safety. Now, we're certainly building in safety features, and we've told you about some of them. Other things we're not going to mention. One of the things I have found interesting, I've seen a number of stories on the news nationally about schools that are the safest school in the country, and they list all of their safety features. Guess what? They're no longer the safest school in the country because they just listed all of their safety features on national news, okay? And the first responders will tell you that that's not a wise thing to do. And so we are going to be building in all of the appropriate safety features, but we're not going to talk about all of them for safety reasons. So safety is very, very important, but it doesn't mean a building that looks like a prison. It means a building that is warm and inviting and welcoming. And we're really, really excited about that. So that's the academics and the safety, and finally, timeline. And there is a timeline on a handout you are all going to be receiving. There is also a specific timeline for each of these buildings on these boards, and of course it's on our website as well. But Tremont and Greensview and Wycliffe are going to open 18 months from now, in the fall of 2020. Okay? Barrington and the high school and Windermere are going to open 2.5 years from now, in the fall of 21. And we are going to begin breaking ground on projects as soon as March, and that'll start here at the high school first. But again, all of that is listed on these sheets. One final thing I wanted to mention before we get into the feedback activity. One of the things I know about our community is it is a very proud community, and that is wonderful. One of the things I was told when I was being hired here is that this is a lighthouse school district. We are a school district that others look to around the state and around the nation. And so I want you to know you should be very proud of what is happening here. I have already heard from almost 30 superintendents from around the country, from as far away as California, who are already saying, as soon as these are done, we want to be first in line to come visit these, because the word has gotten out that we are setting a new standard in how to design buildings around the academic and educational needs for kids. And we are very, very excited about that, because again, that has been the charge from our Board of Education from the beginning. And so I want you to be very, very proud of that, and understand that you are not getting buildings like every other school district has built. These are really something extraordinary. And we want to thank you for having the vision and the foresight to step up and support a project of this magnitude that is really focused on doing what's right for each and every one of our students. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So at this point, we're going to jump into a feedback activity. You have a piece of paper on your tables, or you are going to in a moment, and there are pens. And we're asking you to give us some feedback on the communication you would like to see from us throughout the construction process. And I'm going to ask for a little bit more. We know that history is very important here. And there are a number of our buildings that are going to be coming down. And we want to make sure that we do a very good job of honoring the history of those buildings and commemorating what they have meant to us before they come down. And so I would love for you to give us some feedback on what you expect of us in order to do that, in order to appropriately honor these buildings, because the buildings that are coming down have been very important places in the lives of many of our kids and families, and we just don't want to tear them down and move on as if they never meant anything to us, because that is not true. So if you have feedback on that, we would love to hear your ideas. The other thing is this: we have committed to keeping you informed throughout the process. So one of the things we are going to do, and I want your feedback on this, is at some point towards the mid part of the process, we're going to open these buildings on a weekend. We're going to throw open the gates. We're going to hand you a hard hat. Yes, we're going to ask you to sign a waiver. Sorry. And we're going to invite you to actually tour our sites, because these are your buildings. They are not ours. And we want to make sure that you are involved in this and see them as they're going up, in addition to all the pictures and videos on the websites. So I would like to hear from you if you think that's a good idea, because that's going to take a lot of time on our part, and we're excited to do it, but we don't want to do it if that's something you would rather not do. And so I would love to hear from you if you think that is a good idea. And as always, we're open to any and all of your ideas on any topic as we begin this construction phase of the process. This is an incredibly exciting time to be in UA. And again, I want to thank you again for being a part of this process and really for supporting your schools in such a historic way. So we are going to be set up at stations around the room. And again, we are going to stay here tonight until we've answered all of your questions. And so with that, the formal part of the evening's over, and you can work on the feedback and begin going to stations to have your questions answered. Thanks a lot for coming out tonight. And as always, go Bears.